Welcome to Super Sports System University. Today we'll be discussing Cascade Season Transition. We'll specifically discuss different techniques which will allow you to successfully move to the second phase of your season after finishing the first cascade. These techniques are important, and the considerations we're going to make will influence the outcome of your season. To start, you will need to log into your account, and we are in a sample account of one of our coaches. So it's a real-time account, and so we go from here to Manage Athletes Training Data. That's a selection you would like to make. The first part of our season in this case is already over, and in fact, the coach already passed about 2 weeks after the peak of the season. So it is really a due time to change the strategy and restart the season towards its final destination. To do that, we would need to roll back the season to the third or fourth week of training and start it where the training load is really low, and then continue it all the way up to the end of the season, which will, in this case, will coincide with the conference dates. To start our adjustments, we would need to return to Edit Profile 1 or Main Athlete Profile on our system. After arriving to Profile 1, there are several considerations we'll have to make. First of all is our main distance and target results on main distance. In this case, we have our previous best result, 16:29, and this was the result showed before September 1 or before the season started. Since our athletes participated in some sort of racing by the end of first cascade, most likely we do have a new result. And the question is whether we should adjust the previous best result in this situation for the second cascade. This is something you need to decide. And in most cases, it may be a good idea to revise and set up a previous best result based on the end result of the first cascade. The target result for the season will remain the same unless your previous best result changed dramatically. And so in this case, you will be still moving towards 1540 on 1650 yards, trying to accomplish 5% improvement on that distance. The next set of decisions we need to make will be on section part 3, season planning. First, we would like to start with selection of the initial intensity for the season. Considering that we finished the first cascade doing some racing, we know that our athletes already been able to race and went through serious preparation all the way up to this time. So it is most likely that you need to increase the initial intensity and start it with 95, if not 97%, from previous best time. The previous best time, of course, in this case, will still be 16:29, and we will be considering 95% from 16:29. So in most cases, 95% will be a safe choice. Now we have to select the starting date of the second cascade. The way we approach it is that we're trying to select the date which is about 4 weeks past the current date. So if we are setting this, if I'm making our settings here as of December 1, considering that today is December 1, for example, we then should consider a starting date which will be 4 weeks earlier than December 1, which in most cases will be November 1. And we go from here to November. And then we need to decide how many weeks we would like to roll it back. It usually is 3 to 4 weeks, and also may depend on the beginning week of your next cascade. Whether you have exams, are you starting to train immediately right now, or your athletes will require additional week or additional time to recover after previous training season. For the purpose of our demonstration, I will select November 10 as a starting date for the next phase of our training. The target date of our season will coincide with the conference date. Our conference in this example is set for January 20th. And we can set up this season to end with February 20th, of course, 2014 and of next year. So our season is set. The only thing which we would like to think about at this time is whether we want the season to end exactly on a date of the conference. In most cases, or in some cases, we may want to leave some additional time before the conference for fine-tuning of athletes' ability, or additional taper if you wish. And so, in that sense, we may want to target our next phase about 6-7 days earlier than actual conference start date. So I will go to February 14th, thus leaving another 6 days for manual tune-up period before the actual starting date of the conference. So the dates are set here, and all we have to do is to click through Profile 2 and 3 to arrive to a season plan page. Let's do it. Once you arrive to Training Control Center, you want to move to Advanced Season Planner page. Checking the season planning page is a very important step in this procedure when you are resetting your athletes for a second phase of your cascade. When we look at the graph, we see that the graph is looking quite normal, and we're starting our training at about week 5 of our next 15-week season, which is exactly where we want to be at week of December 8th. However, our season looks off in terms of its volume. The volume here is way above from what we've done last season, and we need to check what's really going on here. So the way to do it is to look at the current phase volume suggested by 3S, and this volume is calculated as a function of your target result on the main distance. So in this case, we would need to adjust the volume to 3S suggested and override the previous volume which was used in the first cascade to 3S suggested for the second cascade phase. We may enter the exactly same amount of yardage or adjust it within approximately 10-15%. Having this said, we understand that we may reduce the probability of achieving the target result. However, nothing in 3S is really a dogma, and you really need to apply common sense and, of course, the specific conditions you may be in. We adjust the season for 3S suggested. Once we do this, we can look at the graph and see what's really happening here. The next important consideration here is the peaking date of the second cascade. We know that our target date or our conference will start on February 20th. And so we also know that we need about 4 to 5 weeks minimum change the direction of our training to improve the anaerobic power or maximum speed for our athletes. It will not happen overnight. We need time to do that. And usually minimum 3 to 4 weeks required to make this change. When we have a little bit more time for doing this, between 5 and 6 weeks, that may be optimal. In our particular case, we are reaching peaking of volume on January 15th. And in 3S system, as you already know, the peaking of the volume date coincides with change of strategy. So once we peak the volume, we finish our accumulation phase and now transit into competition phase, leading to a taper. Our season looks good right now. Our construction looks very, very solid. The only consideration which you may still want to make is to consider and to check the beginning volumes of training load per energy zone. In our case, the target areas will be Zone 2 and Zone 3, and then the first week load can be regulated in our tool. In our particular situation, we see that the suggested amount of volume, amount of yardage in Zone 2 will start with 5.8 thousand yards per week, starting with week 4. So we are already in week 5, so it's about proper time. But think about the training volume per energy zone. You need to convert this yardage into specific training sets. The specific training set in Zone 2 will be around 2000 yards. If you'll follow this suggestion, then basically you'll have to do about 3 sets of 2000 yards in week number 1, which may be really excessive. What I will do here, I will suggest adjusting this number in about a half in this case. And I'll bring it down to probably 2.8 thousand yards for the first week. I will do the same with Zone 3 because it's really high intensity set, and excessive amount of work in this zone early enough in the season may be detrimental to the rest of your season. So I would go again with about 1 or 2 sets per week in Zone 3 to start with. And so our typical set in Zone 3 is 5 200s, which is about 1000 yards. So 2000 or 2000 yards will be a really appropriate number to start our season in Zone 3, even if not the last. Everything else looks good, and all we have to do here is save and calculate our adjustments, our settings. We return back to the graph, see what we receive here. We see the drop of volume in mid-weeks of a season because we drop the initial volume of Zone 2 and Zone 3, which is actually all right, because in this case, the drop of volume will coincide with holiday season, and we'll be able to increase training volume right after the athletes will come back from their holidays. Our season is done. With this, there is nothing else needs to be done because all our settings are now taken automatically and will be applied to our weekly distribution of training load based on our construction. There is still one thing to do once you complete the change of your season plan. Let's return to Training Control Center and make final changes on that page. At this point of time, the system still doesn't know that we made the changes to our season. And so what we see on our on our Training Control Center is the previously saved image of the week 5 training week. That is where the button Reset to Default is coming useful. So let's click on that button and make sure that all our calculations are now consistent with the latest changes made by us. As you can see, there is a dramatic change between what we've seen before in saved image comparing to what is selected by system right now. The way to check our settings is to look at our training information desktop. That's where we can see selected week. We can see the actual volume for this week, 54,000 yards, and planned 52,000 yards. There will always be a slight discrepancy in these volumes. That is nothing you have to worry about. But in this case, you can see that everything is consistent and our daily distribution looks really great. The selection of sets is now consistent with our training suggestions, and we can select days and check our workouts based on the latest changes we made in our settings. As a matter of reminder, it may be a good practice to use Reset to Default button once a week at the beginning of the week. This way, you will make sure that your system is always up to date and always using the latest changes you made to the system. To round up our discussion, let's quickly repeat the steps which you need to do to move your seasons to the second cascade phase of your training. First, go to Administration page. Select an athlete you want to play with. Go to Edit Personal Data. Check Previous Best Time and Target Time and make changes if it is necessary based on latest performances of your athlete. Go to Season Planning part of the page. Make sure you select proper training intensity for the beginning of a season and start changing the dates going back about 3 or 4 weeks before current date and targeting the system about 6 days before the beginning of your actual event. Click through Profile 2 and 3. This will make sure that the system will override the settings in your database. Once you arrive to Training Control Center, go to Advanced Season Plan. Check the training volume suggested for the season and adjust them if necessary. check your season design, and adjust beginning volumes for zone 2 and 3 if you feel that they are excessive for the beginning of the season. Save and calculate. This will do the planning part of your season. Return back to Training Control Center and reset your settings, making sure that your latest changes are taken into consideration by the system and your latest calculations are made on your latest settings. Thank you for your attention. This will conclude our presentation. We would like to wish you a wonderful season and a lot of fun performances.